Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
ECSI fans, do you want to revolutionize your sports investing habits? Allow me to tell you about WagerWire. WagerWire is an app that helps you become a superior bettor by allowing you to sync all of your sports books and track all of your bets in one place. See your current action, your betting history, and stats. You can also sign up for sports books and collect bonus offers. Follow them at WagerWire on X, as they're the best account on the platform. Head to the App Store or Play Store now and search WagerWire to download the app.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I am the host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is the Dawg and Desperado Fantasy Football Show, episode 21, Friday, December 29th, 2023. Our last show with Shawn in 2023, probably our last fantasy football show of the year. We were talking backstage. We'll figure out what we're going to do for baseball, as he's got a lot of writing for each team, projections, etc. for fantasy baseball coming up in March there. Shout out to the gentlemen behind the desk, Joseph Shea and Evan Lewis. Shout out to our proud new sponsor and partnership, WagerWire. If you have not downloaded this app, please head on over to Google Play or wherever you download the apps. It's free. Start tracking your bets, start tracking your ROI, and get accustomed to the app itself. Here at ECSI, we'll be doing a lot more work with them in 2024. We'll be doing some daily shows, power lunches, breaking down. I have a couple graphs on my Twitter account at EC Sports Invest. Go take a look. I put them up early this morning while you guys were sleeping. Some Big East, some Pac-12 looks there, some values of $100 wager before the start and where they are now, maybe some buy low spots there. Shout out to Zach, Travis, and the rest of the WagerWire community team staff. An amazing group of people. So if you would like to join their affiliate program, send an email to affiliates@wagerwire.com. Tell them JD at ECSI sent you. Good way to make some flash cash and great start to 2024. So without further ado, let's bring in the Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Shawn Childs.
All right, Jeff, we're at the end of the football season, and just had a question for you because, I should give you $100 each week for my crazy parlays, but just in general, I mean, you've been, in the, in giving out the picks things for a while, and it's the platform that you started out with, and it's a tough battle, is because you're only as good as yesterday. You know what I mean? So once you lose or whatever, so I kind of almost think it's like betting $100 a game. You can win, you lose, or you have some other friends like we know the guy at the bowling alley might like to bet 500 or 1,000. Everybody has their pain tolerance or risk tolerance or whatever. But realistically, in the daily games, I'm a swing for the fences type of guy, and I think that's how I kind of approach, even if I do the prop bets for football, which I think I do the research and have information. So I, unfortunately, want to swing for the fences, and they're unrealistic, but if I do pop, I get a big score. So I guess the grinder of surviving a football season, is it the same as we go to the pool table at the billiard room and we play for $10 a game and you're down 100, and then when you're down 100, you just want to get even, right? But that evens might cost you 6 hours, might cost you your girlfriend, like you didn't go home. But so is the grind of betting the game, or is it better to be like an underdog parlay guy, and maybe not in the realm of me trying to hit the 5-teamer for 150,000 for 100, but maybe the 2-teamer with 2 plus 400s or something like that, or even on the games on the money lines. You think legs wise, what is the better approach in I know it's a handicapping the board fluctuates from week to week and even anything. So, it's an interesting question. And that I'm not, I've worked as a middleman for a bookie for a long time. And I know that if you're betting with me and placing the bet, I have a lot better chance of winning than if I'm going to pick it. And I don't want to be the guy picking it. But I kind of have an opinion and once in a while have some action, but I don't gravitate to that. I'd more gravitate towards player props now because I do the work. So it's a little different. Whereas you're doing the work, look at the numbers and the movements and stuff like that. So, all right, well, just your thoughts on a couple of my ideas and a little different opening than normal, but, I think irrelevant, because the betting is so much in the face now and how people survive long term and how can you turn a profit? And is it a grinder or is it, tee it up and swing for the fences?
Well, there was someone this week that hit, I don't know, what was it, a 23-legged parlay. He just needed McCaffrey to score a touchdown for him. $5 he turned into 400,000. And unfortunately, Shawn, when we started here in 2015, January 1st, to be exact, this Monday will be the start of our 9th year of public service. And this was light years before PASPA passed. I know when I talked to you specifically and said, this is what I wanted to do, you looked at me like I had 28 heads. You said, are you bleeping kidding me? I mean, what do you want to put your name, your face out there? Who knows who's going to come knocking after they might have overspent on a player too. Shout out to Sean Kroll. Happy New Year. Mr. Kitchen, I didn't get out onto the golf course this year. I apologize. You reached out to me in, I think it was May on a Wednesday, and I was tied up. I apologize. So please, please, please send that invite back. I know Sean loves the Hyannis Golf Course, the work that you do there, and we can't thank you enough there. Thank you, Sean. My point here is it is now everywhere. There's 35 plus states available for action. DraftKings, FanDuel, and all these other companies are giving you free bets. In other words, deposit $5. When you lose, we're going to give you $150 worth of free bets. So it becomes, I'm playing with their money, so therefore I want action on the game. Someone like yourself, old school, every time you say, hey, I got a 10-legged parlay, $100 to win 50,000, I'm like, of course I'm rooting for you, but the odds of hitting are slim to none. So the game has changed. I mean, you do the work months and months and months. And then we get to June, July, and August, you do the underdogs, the DraftKings. And now we get to September when it starts, and it's trying to hit the millie in the DraftKings in fantasy. But now you got the props. And with you doing all the work, what are your numbers versus the book's numbers are usually off by a wide margin. So you find in the 5, 6, 8 legs that, hey, I got this guy getting 85 yards. His prop's only 45. So there's always that one that ends up costing you. So the grind is there. I guess the easy way to say this, Shawn, is it ends up being entertainment. Meaning, hey, I'm going to spend $100 on 2 parlays this week, and if I lose, it's like going out to Pizza One, Subs 2, and getting a couple lottery tickets. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I get the entertainment, and I think the next generation is, betting on the games, and they're kind of new to it, and they have, a lot quicker access where they can do $5 or $10, which kind of reels them in. And as they get through life and they have better jobs, eventually it'll be $100 and whatever. But at the same time, there's a churn factor for me. Like, you can only, you lose X amount of dollars. Maybe it's $1,000 a football season or $500 for whatever person. At some point, you might be back, but the sports books or that's why they give you the money, because they want to reel you in and get a little bit more out of you. But ultimately, I would say that the time that I worked with him, everybody lost, in some sort of fashion. And I know that one one person, friend of mine, Rich Doucette, probably never listened to this, so I can mention his name, but he was probably up $3,000 over like 3 years, pretty good hanging in there, but had that little slump and then chased it and then gave it all back. So, it will happen over time. And unfortunately, it is the pool thing aspect sometimes where, during the week you want to get even and then you dig a bigger hole. And then, but I think that ultimately is that it should be entertainment, right? But also at the same time is, you don't want to be the guy that we know that puts up $1,000 and try to win. I mean, even like, betting on the underdog and in betting 25 to win 400 or so, even if it's a parlay, it just, the risk is a lot less, but the reward is a lot more, but you're going to get nickel dimed along the way, but you're going to get, probably some better experiences and some better sweats. So, I ultimately think that I do it wrong. I don't do the 10-team parlays. I'm more of a, I try to do 5. And what I've been doing when I do it at DraftKings, and I haven't done it that much this year, is I'm looking for a receiver, a running back. And like you said, I do the projections, but my projections are, what best outcome bet matchup, where the sports books are laying a line of like, say, Michael Pittman, 67 yards. They don't care what the matchup is. They just know that number is going to come in. He's going to hit it 50% of the time, or he has, or whatever. And they're okay losing it because, he's not going to hit it all the time. So we're dealing with 2 different sets of data. And I always think that maybe I have to be like 20% over because I need margin of error type of thing, or an injury. So, so it's interesting. So I think that realistically, I would probably be a smarter parlay guy if I back down to like 2-player parlays, 3-team parlays, more realistic, not why do I have to, tee it up on that 350-yard hole and try to hit the fairway, hit the green in one shot where, I could just hit 3 good shots and make a profit or have some time over thing. And realistically, probably in like the baseball market, I mean, what are the odds, over like a course of season? There's so many games, do those plus 130s, plus 140s, do they win over time over, you betting minus 320 on the Dodgers or whatever, I mean? You got to win over 3 out of 4 to make money on that stuff. So it's all a math problem, and people are a lot smarter than me to deal with the math, but I also don't play it. So it's interesting, especially when you're doing with a wager wire, and you probably in that realm, you probably have those bigger tickets are tied to people want to sell them. They get the first 3 legs in and get some money back. And even some of the DraftKings give you the cash out option. So it is, the whole world is in the betting market is interesting. It's changed, and everybody has a different philosophy, but we all have different things. And probably the difference between me, and I wouldn't say you right now because you're not obviously in the right situation, but if I'm putting any content out there, like I'll put out like a parlay that I do for Underdog, I'm betting it. I'm doing it. So I'm telling you what I'm doing, and I'm going to risk it. So that's my opinion. If I lose, I lose. But as I once went with my brother, I can go to the dog track and lose 100 a race and know what I'm up against. I bring my brother in who's never had any experience, and we're at the dog track and we win $1,400. We hit a $5,000 super. It's all cool. But that time that I got to get $800 out of his pocket when I have a bad day, that's a different experience. And can you handle it? And that comes from you and me we're conditioned. And when it's not a condition in a bad way, but we can take the ups and downs. I can probably take the ups and downs a little different than you, because I can watch my pitcher in baseball take an ass whipping where you might have action on the game and you ain't never watching that thing, where I don't mind seeing it, and I get frustrated, but I don't, it's going to happen no matter what. So that's a whole different level of the whole experience. But, that's the kind of stuff that, the other people kind of go through in life. You meant Sean Kroll, great guy, best driver on Cape Cod, I think, right? He got a new one this year, but, he likes the games and stuff like that. And I don't know if, what level he has in life. You've been a lot closer to him and had more experiences with him and that thing. But, it's a battle, even his Stu Bunning might be a $5 player, where Kroll, has experienced more than that. But I don't even know. I'm just, I don't know what his background is or something like that. But like I said, there's all kinds, and it's just an interesting, process, the whole thing about the games.
One of the reasons I started East Coast Sports Investors and I used the word investing, second stream of income, never used the word gambling, was trying to educate. That's why we have 1,500 shows on YouTube right now. None of them ever scripted, not one of them. There'll never be a scripted show. It's because we want to be able to educate. For me now, what I've transitioned to is reading the market, checking the numbers overnight, checking the movement overnight to the morning, the numbers where they're betting them, and try to extract that value. I created and launched East Coast Sports Investors to tell my story, to enlighten people so they don't make the same mistakes that I did in my 20s, in my 30s, and even in my 40s. The fingers, the North End, the Federal Hills. There's no need to do that. But as you talked about chasing, whether it's up 500 to down 500 to getting even, it's chase. It's quicksand Saturday, quicksand Sunday, however you want to teach it. And you want to get out of that euphoria, the highs when you hit them, but the lows, as you said. And yeah, I may not watch the game, but I'm following it on my phone. I know what the hell's going on every pitch, every golf swing. Listen, I'm the guy that has the guy that's -7 for the day that turns him on and sees him hit the ball into the water his first shot since I watched him. I'm not saying I'm BP, and I won't even say his name out loud, like, the black cloud sometimes, but I've lived enough of those experiences. I've lived walk into the dog track with $12, walk out with 12,000, and then walk in 2 days later with that 12,000 and leave broke and owe a teller 5,000. I have every one of those stories, and the highs and the lows, and that's why I try to stay off the roller coaster. And unfortunately, in today's society right now, your cell phone is a walking casino. It's the Bellagio, wherever you want to call it, Encore, and with DraftKings, FanDuel, or any app available, BetMGM, Caesars, when whatever it is right now in Massachusetts, there's 7 of them. You never have to leave the house, and because the game's on, people are more attached to playing that game that's on. The wife's away for the night or the weekend. Therefore, I'm going to have fun. What's on TV? And now you add the same game parlays. It's just a money pit. And that's the problem. And you talked about WagerWire. They have now partnered with RT Sports, which you're very, very familiar with. And hopefully for the NFL playoffs, or at worst, the Super Bowl, you are going to be able to go in there, put together your parlays and stuff, have 3 of the 5 hit, and you're coming up to the last game where you need, you need Mahomes to throw a touchdown and Kels to get a touchdown. And your $100 before the bet and the 5 leg was worth $2,000. There's a calculator right there. It is now worth $14.25 is the true value going into the last 2 legs. And there'll people that'll be able to buy shares. You can sell the whole ticket. And that's where we come into play, saying, yeah, the odds of Mahomes throwing a touchdown is -220. The odds of Kels throwing a touchdown, of Kels getting a touchdown, is -120. But you risked 100, it's now worth $14.50. Let's get some profit into your pocket and still save a little of that ticket.
Yeah, when you're talking about that, I'm going back in time and the learning experience, and I'll give you one war story, and you can probably throw in one if you want. And I remember in 1986, you and me probably lived the same realm of Mike Addy, and and I had fingers or whatever, a high school teacher up in Boston. I won't even mention it, but I don't even know his real name. But so I got tied to these, a bookie and young kid, call in, betting 25, 50, 100 for a year, and had to check in. It's between 6 and 7. And when you're single and not really have a girlfriend, that's all fine and good and stuff. So, Red Sox in the World Series, diehard, players, I'm going to bet $1,500 on the Red Sox to win the World Series against the Mets, right? They're up, they're going to win the game, win the title or whatever. I got in the game 6, I had $1,500 on the Red Sox, which is well above my range. You know what I mean? But if they win, I win the $1,500, and I win the series, right? They lose the game. It's a Saturday night. Supposed to play the next night, and Oil Can Boyd was supposed to play, and it's raining. But now it's the end of the week. I got to settle up with this guy. So, here I go. I do 6 teasers, and I probably haven't done a teaser since then. 6 $250 teasers, 2 and 3 teamers. I win them all. I get out of jail for my dumb $1,500 bet for the Red Sox in their loss. They're playing on a Monday night again, and I have the Red Sox. All I have to do is bet the Mets for $1,500. I'll lose a couple hundred. I will live another day. But no, we got to bet $1,500 on the Red Sox, and the rest of the story. And I owe the bookie $3,000, and then scrambling to pay him off. But it was a good experience to lose because I probably kind of learned a good lesson, and I probably since that time I've never had that experience where I had to call or look at the DraftKings for every day for a year, but I lived that for a year. Would like the Red Sox, but if it would have went a little different, I would have won. I would have pissed it away some other thing. But I mean, it's just kind of interesting when you look at back at what you did and your decision making and stuff like that. And I messed around with a little late 90s, and like I said, in the middleman, you follow the numbers, a little bit closer when you're kind of involved in the game. So you are taking the shots, but I'm more of let's get 200 to win. Let's turn that into something else rather than I'm not going to be the guy betting 1,000 trying to whatever. So and we didn't have we had game parlays probably back then, but we didn't have the you could do the money line for the game, but the odds of them are less than a guy like a wide receiver getting 80 yards at plus 450 has a better chance of coming in sometimes rather than a plus 450 for winning on the money line. I don't even know what the technically is that a 4.5 5-point spread or whatever, but so like I said, it's a backstory and something if you lived, and these people that are playing today, they have to live through some of these experiences, and like you said, you mentioned a few things about the dog track, and you've gone through some of these things, and it's helped educate you and helped you make better decisions, but ultimately there's so much unknown and injuries and stuff like that. It's hard to even win 60% of the time. And that's, what's the number you have to hit with a minus 110 VIG or minus a $10 VIG to break even? What is it? 53% to break even? What is it?
51.9%.
Yeah. So it's, but who wants to break even? But, like I said, and you said entertainment value. Yeah, it's there. So just interesting, so that's my thought on the gambling side of it. And we have kind of a different worlds that we live in, but similar experiences along the way, I would say.
Yeah. And 2024, we're in an election year. The economy's not doing great. The housing market's not doing great. The last election year in 2020, we were part of COVID. I'm not saying that there's going to be a COVID part 2 where in 2020, we weren't in 2, 3, 4, 5 wars going on as well. Jim Christie says, great segment. Hey, Jim, thank you so much for all the support, you and Kenny Magner. Wishing you the best of luck in the last week of the NFFC. I saw you were up there not too long ago in the Classic. Hopefully you can cash a few tickets late here and get ready for baseball in March. Hopefully we'll be up there in Vegas as well. Catch you at the South Point. I'll buy the hot dogs, and we'll have Kenny buy Dom Vito. How's that? So, and speaking of NFFC, last week of the regular season, the playoff run, I have to be an open book. At one great swing in the online championship, 4,800 teams started in September, 900 plus made the playoffs. The middle of last week, we were as high as 37th. Didn't have anyone going last night. Unfortunately, the team that we are wheeling out, no Jalen Waddle this week, and we lost Hawkinson last week. I'm praying to the gods that Hunter Henry plays. They'll at least be able to put him in at tight end. I played Gabe Davis last week. Thank God I did. I have an option of Antonio Gibson, Demario Douglas, or Justice Hill. in the flex spot there. So I'm at 100th right now, and I'm just going to vent for a second. It's amazing who is shining the last couple of weeks. Breece Hall coming out of nowhere last week and again last night. Amari Cooper gives everyone a 50 burger and then takes the week off. Joe Flacco says, hold my beer, not a problem. Against a Jet defense that had allowed 4 passing touchdowns to wide receivers all year. You can vent, scream, holler. I mean, this year has been nothing but insanity.
Yeah, it's interesting. Somebody mentioned earlier, and then that Breece Hall, third round bust or whatever, and I didn't think that was a proper statement. But he's the guy that's been the running back that's kind of been a difference maker down the stretch, and you just wonder how good that guy would have been if Aaron Rodgers was starting quarterback. I mean, I think he's up to fourth or fifth running back scoring, putting a nice push there. Amari Cooper probably, I'm going to be honest, by him getting scratched, he did fantasy teams a favor because he has a history of having some really good games and then kind of disappearing. And he is a really talented player, and he had a lot of contested balls that he made tough catches last week. But, it's disappointing for somebody that had him, but if you had somebody else on your bench, you might have only got an 8 out of Amari last night. Maybe he would have been Elijah Moore and got the 20. Who knows? But, Jets, defense was supposed to be, like you said, pretty good against the pass, give up some stuff to touchdowns and running backs. But Joe Flacco. Can I ask you one last question about this?
He's this year's Blake Bortles, right?
Who feels more violated? I was thinking this on the way. The women that dealt with Deshaun Watson, or the Cleveland Browns fans and management? You know what I mean? Paying all that money to Watson, and you got Flacco, who actually makes the offense better. And at no point when Watson was on the field, and maybe he was hurt with shoulder, did he look like he made the offense better. And Flacco's made plays, kept them in games. I mean, they were winning early in the year, and they weren't losing because of Watson when they, a couple of those games. But Flacco, I mean, they didn't throw 40 times last night, but they had like 6 straight games where they threw the ball 40 times. And coming into the year, you consider them a running team, and they were running the ball really well out of the gate. So that's pretty impressive finish to the year for the Cleveland Browns. And that would be one Cinderella story if they can sneak through the playoffs.
Well. The funny thing, Shawn, is last week I was talking to Rick about this. It was Amari had an Amari game. You talked to Brady Tinker, and who covered him in Dallas, and he's the guy in the corner playing chess with another lineman while the rest of the team's out there listening to the music, goofing around in the locker. He's just an odd duck. And he has 2 or 3 of those games a year. And you're right. He would have done nothing last night. We know that for a fact. There would have been a fact. You would have had to play him and taken it for the team, but he would not have done that. But what last week was so special, Joe was dropping dimes and Cooper on either sideline, how he was getting his feet in, how he was making those catches. And lastly, you talk about violated and the Cleveland fans. How about the inept of the Jets? They had Joe in the building last year. Now, was it an Aaron Rodgers thing that didn't want Joe in the building, or you didn't think to pick up the phone to call Joe once Aaron went down? I mean, think of Joe with the Jets this year.
Yeah, I mean, the Jets, they had some pieces, but they also had some flaws. Their receiving core, wide receiving core behind Wilson was just kind of a disaster. Just nobody really emerged. The Lazard experience, I don't know if he survives this spring to come back with Aaron Rodgers. Him and Cobb should never ended up on the Jets last year. They just, they had ties to Rodgers, but just, they need good players around him, and maybe Devontae Adams ends up there next year, and that'll help put the structure of the wide receiver a lot better. And I think the Jets will be more competitive with Rodgers. But he just, he wouldn't make the mistakes, and he would, move the ball, and it would change the whole dynamics of the game. And then, obviously that would help also the run game with Breece Hall, and he's been tremendous catching the ball. Do you think next year Breece Hall's a top 5 pick?
Well, I listen. I wasn't on him last year. I liked him this year. I didn't mind where he was going. I was not affected with Dalvin Cook being added to that roster. Uh, uh, you talk about this. Everyone in fantasy football for the season long understands what I'm about to say. It's called game flow. And last week they were blowing out Washington, and in comes Jacoby Brissett, and he brings them back into the game that keeps Brees Hall involved in that game. And then he had the game flow again, down early, and then listen, the touchdown on the first drive, God bless him, get you 12 points, 12.4 points out of the gate. Everyone that had him was like, all right, hey, now we can just build off of this. The 10 catches back-to-back weeks. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, listen, I like him. I respect him. But again, the game flow the last 2 weeks is why you got 40-something last week and you got almost 30 this week.
I had last night in the DraftKings showdown. They got that turnover where they had the ball at like the 24-yard line, and Kareem Hunt had 2 or 3 rushes. If Kareem Hunt can hit on a touchdown there and get the final 10 yards, there's a good chance I would have hit a piece of the winning ticket. Not 100% sure because the dynamics are slightly different, but the people that won basically either the 6th spot, won with a second tight end, and they had for the Jets, and was winning before that was like 3 points from the second or third tight end from Cleveland. So, but I didn't use Flacco at all. Lower scoring game. Thought it was spread around, and just but I did put Ford on top, and I put the Cleveland defense. But close. But I got $40. No 70,000 or 100 or even 4,000 or whatever. But
I'm going to go back to memory lane. 2017. I was fortunate enough to win 2 national titles. The Classic was one, and the Online was the other. The Online only had 2,600 teams to battle against, and we started 367 or something out of 525. This year, again, 4,800 teams, 900 and change made it. But you talked about before the 3-week sprint, Jeff. If he can get to 540, that is your goal. And we came out of the gates with a 155. Last week we had a 180. But you look up to the guy on the lid, and will you please just talk about how insanity this is? He put up a 260 plus last week.
That is crazy, but he probably got off to a good start. I don't know if he had Njoku, but if he had Njoku and Hall, he already bounced out of the gate with 50 something points. I mean, but that's what you wait for. You don't want those 200-point weeks. You don't want that 260 in week 3 or whatever. I know Steve Fiore, our friend that goes to Vegas for thing, he popped at like a 239 midseason. Like, man, that's great. He didn't even make the playoffs, but if you can hit on that, 15, 16, or 17, you're a contender. I mean, it breaks right, and especially if the players that got hot can have a follow-through game after that. So, but yeah, that guy just, that was a crazy week. 260.
How about this? Is how insane it is. He was sitting on Sunday night with 190, and he had an option at quarterback, Brock Purdy or Jalen Hurts. He played Jalen Hurts, and he had to plug in CMC. So you're sitting at 190 still with Jalen Hurts or Brock Purdy. He played Jalen Hurts, the right call there, and CMC. And like I said, he ended up with 263 or something. Unless he didn't field the team, he was going to win the 250,000. Congratulations there. We're fighting for, I think, 14 other paid spots. So again, I limp in with, potentially Demarius Douglas, and I got to come back with Gabe, and he's not ranked to do anything this week. And Demarius Douglas is above him by 20 spots and supposed to get about 12 points. I got to ask you before we start breaking these games down.
Well, one note before you go, that Chris Schinker, my good friend, he's in the FFWC Fantasy Football World Championship. I think he came into the week 8th, 33 points out of first. And realistically, Kansas City defense had 3 good matchups in a row. Patriots 2 games at home, and they've done nothing. And he had the Raiders kicker. So he but nothing special. But he had Njoku, but everybody that's in front of him probably has McCaffrey, and he does too. But I mean, you're still in the realm. I mean, he put up a 192 and a 168. He averaged a 180 in the season thing. So he's going to have to get that 200, and hopefully the game, whoever's way up there, that put up the 230 in that format or whatever it was, has kind of a 140 game, 135, a lot of averages. So Chris, hopefully he can make a run there. He's in he's one of the few teams out in our little realm that I know that's close to an overall, and I wish him luck. And he has a couple of decisions at wide receiver, running back if Michael Pittman does play, and obviously if Pittman plays, I think he's got to be in the starting lineup. But so go ahead. What's the question?
I don't know if I shouted him out. Stuart Bunting said, "Happy New Year's, gentlemen. May 2024 be magical for all." And a yes to you as well, Stuart. My question is, I got to play Gabe. Because again, could this be, it's going to be a low scoring game, supposedly, probably James Cook, maybe they'll feed Diggs, but again, I don't want to sit him like last week, where he was within 5 yards of getting 2 touchdowns and, getting 35. Demarius Douglas is rated well. I liked what I saw last week from Justice Hill. I mean, pass catching back, last year, I think it was last year, Ravens had a 21-point lead against the Dolphins in the fourth quarter, and that was Tua's coming out game. They came back to tie and win that game, and this is for number 1 spot. Do you like Justice Hill this week?
They kind of rotate him in. He gets some catches, but they don't really throw a lot of catches to the running back. I think they're projected that, the team maybe 3 or 4 catches, thing. So Hill's okay. I mean, the game's at home. They're playing Miami. It's all right. I mean, with Davis and the Patriots, I mean, realistically, are the Patriots are they gonna score 2 touchdowns? Are they gonna score 1 touchdown? I mean, it's kind of a really big revenge game for Buffalo after losing to New England earlier in the year, and that put them really in kind of put them in the tailspin a little bit and put them in the position where they were at risk of making the playoffs. I think Jim Ferrari, I think he bet Buffalo when they were 6-6 were they 500 to 1? Could they have? Is that seem right that they could have dropped to that when they were 6-6? I don't know. He would maybe a 50 to 1 or whatever. Maybe he bet 100 to 1, something like that. I don't know, but he, bought him on the dip, because when you're looking at the rest of the teams, they had a rough road and there was no guarantee that they were going to win some of them games, but they're a much better team than 3 or 4 teams that are ahead of them. So it was a reasonable gamble there. So, but I would, I mean, Hill's, he's not going to get the goal line touchdowns. I mean, does he get enough catches? Is it going to be a chaser game? I don't think there's enough excitement there for me to put there. And then Davis is what he is. I mean, if he has a good game, is it 12 points? Has he scored this year at all?
He scored. No, he scored last week. He had 23 points last week. He scored and he got stopped on the 5. He would have had 2 touchdowns. I was debating that or Antonio Gibson. I got Antonio Gibson. And is Brian Robinson playing? I mean, I know Chichi is now on the IR. I mean, but Gibson has been a flop, and it's going to be a chase game, obviously, against the 49ers. And by the way, Mr. Russell Saylor says Pittman is a go, Sean. He's a big indie guy.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, I mean, Chris has T. Higgins, Pittman, Evans, really good receiver. He had Thielen, caught him early in the year, kind of had sat him a couple of weeks, but he was forced to play him last year. He's got, I think, Walker from Seattle, who's a little nicked up, so he might be the guy that gets squeezed out. His second running back has kind of scooched him. His ETN's done nothing. He's playing at home. This is a decent matchup for him. I mean, could he pop and have 1 game and get 30? I doubt it, but, at least it's at home, so I think he has to stick with them. And then they play it's a double flex. Njoku is his tight end. I think Stafford is his quarterback, and his other receiver is pretty good. He actually had 1 extra good player all year, which is really helpful when you have to cover some injuries. Actually, it's Collins from Houston, and with Stroud back, I think you got to play him too. So I guess Pittman's in, yeah. So it'll be Thielen or, maybe Walker or something like that. And Walker, I thought, had a chance this week, but we'll see.
Well, you had obviously no Browns. You don't have to worry about the Jets. And Green Bay and Minnesota's at 8:20. Tomorrow is Detroit and Dallas. Other than that, you have a full slate ahead of you for Sunday. We spent 40 minutes already, which has been a great show, by the way. A lot of people watching, so thank you guys that are watching here. A lot of 1 o'clock games: Miami, Baltimore, Pats at Buffalo, Atlanta at Chicago, Tennessee, Houston, Vegas at Indy, Carolina, Jacksonville, Rams, Giants, Arizona, Philly, New Orleans against Baker Mayfield. Another great story there. San Fran at Washington. I assume a lot of people might look to a bounce back for Brock there. And Washington going with Brissett, sitting Howell. Those are your 1 o'clock, Shawn. Anything stick out to you on the 1 o'clock matchups?
I mean, I have to believe that at least one player from the 49ers is on the winning ticket this week. I mean, Washington ranked so bad against quarterbacks, so bad against wide receivers, and they've been fading against running backs. They're actually okay against tight ends. So you would think that one guy would fit. I know Debo's a little nicked up of it. McCaffrey's played better, but McCaffrey's really difficult thing. So I kind of thought in the back of my mind that Ayuk hasn't really been more of a steady, 17, 15-point guy last 4 or 5 weeks. His best game of the year was week 1. But he has, multiple touchdowns. We had Kittle have a pretty good game last week, and he's viable. So, I think that somebody from the 49ers has a chance to pop. Is just there's really a bunch of interesting matchups because, you got the Russell Wilson out. We got Minnesota switching to a different quarterback. We've got, Easton Stick playing for the Chargers and, whoever else. I think the Giants have, so there's a lot of switching at quarterbacks, which ends up bringing in a cheap value. And probably you think about it as like maybe Hall, because it's the Vikings, he's going to be, I didn't have an adjusted the salary. So, but he's probably under 5,000. So you got a buying opportunity creating some space. So I would think that quarterback Hurts, and don't you think the Hurts and the Eagles are so due? They looked a little better offensively and they scored. They play in Arizona, that against running backs, but it just seems like it would be the game that Hurts would pop. Finally have a 4-touchdown game. Maybe he's going to run 1 in, maybe he runs 2 in, and then his other receivers, and Brown hasn't had it. So I kind of really think it Hurts, even though Purdy has their highest ranking of the day for quarterback, but Hurts seems like he would get over 30, 40 fantasy points. For those Eagles to make a run in the playoffs, they had a tough schedule. They really got to get their offense kicked up in gear, and especially passing the ball. And that means Brown has to get rolling too. And the tight end look better, and Smith has looked better of late. So I think it starts at quarterback actually with Hurts, piece of the 49ers, some in Brown for Philadelphia. If I'm going to pair them up, I'm going to go with it. Going to be a tough fit for the rest of it. Especially finding a couple running backs that are values, but I think that's where it'll go. And maybe that, I'll check later with my friend Jeff Bristol there. I usually check. He kind of knows some ownerships, but we'll see what the ownership will be for Hurts in that game. But the running back, it's just sometimes it ends up being, what can you fit in? I mean, White's been, like you mentioned, I think early in the week, that White's been really, really good, consistent. Last week had his least playing time of the year, but he still had 26 touches and then a solid game. But because they played from such a big lead, he didn't get that extra follow through of that 5 or 6 points to get to where he needed to be on the winning ticket. There's so much. Pollard, can't play him, right? He's not, Walker's kind of a split. I think it's a decent matchup. ETN's been a dog. Bijan Robinson bust. Eckler, nothing. I don't know who's going to start for the Raiders. Gibbs has been phenomenal. Elliott's done enough for the Patriots, but it's, kind of a tougher matchup. Hall's already played. Taylor, pretty good matchup. Swift, but I haven't rated high, but it just feels wrong.
Let me interrupt. Shout out to Rick Thomas. He said Jacoby Brissett just popped that he's questionable now. I don't know if he did something in practice or someone like Kyler Murray, obviously with the stomach bug. Here's the running back you haven't mentioned that has been another godsend to anyone near the lid. I assume it's not going to be cheap this week. What about Karen Williams?
He's the second highest, and he's 8,300. And McCaffrey, if this is at DraftKings, McCaffrey's 9,600, Williams 8,300. You really like, what Williams gets for chances. I think he's averaging over 25 touches since he returned. Doesn't, consistently get those catches where he gets 3 or 4 a game, but he can have the games where he gets more. He's playing the Giants. Is the weather going to be okay on the weekend on Sunday on the East Coast?
I heard it's going to be okay. Russell Saylor said hamstring for Brissett. So maybe it's back to Howell. I don't know.
Howell gets one last chance to Howell. But, yeah, I thought he did okay. I don't know what that offense really went sideways. Yeah, so, I mean, but McCaffrey and, Williams, I mean, can you fit them in? But, I mean, that gives you the, when you're going that way, then you're looking for, like, the Vikings quarterback, in the cheaper stack, but, can you get Jefferson? I always think that when you're kind of doing it is that you kind of need three players that are kind of difference makers. And then if you find value at quarterback, and then are you hooking them up with one of your star players or a low value hookup? There's this whole thought process that I need to write for the daily games about, checkpoints of, setting your lineups. And I break the rules religiously every week myself, like a dumbass. But, you get pigeonholed to what you want. Like, last week, perfect example, I'm on Fields and I'm on Mullins. Mullins did okay, a couple touchdowns, threw for 411 yards, but, maybe I would have been right, even with the interceptions, but, he loses the wide receiver 2 and he loses his tight end. So his scoring ability gets diminished or whatever. And Jefferson, could have been a little game, but, who's hot? Who's hot? 2 games winning streak. I've been saying this all year. It's all saying who's hot. Even when you're giving up, the people are setting their lineups for week to week. Who did well last week? Are they trending forward? Run them back if they play well. Joe Flacco. They go into Houston and he's there. But Njoku's on the winning ticket, and he was hot too, right? But he didn't have. You could have won without Njoku, but because you had Flacco, Amari Cooper just $5,900 or whatever he was, $6,000. You got that difference maker right there. Breece Hall stood out. I had him as the number 1 running back last week. We think I would have shoved him on everyone. No, but they dropped down at the other quarterback. And I still had him rated 5th, respectable. But I mean, so the pieces are there of hot, and I'm not, having a piece of that offense. Like, Flacco 200-300 yard game going on the road, Houston, don't do it. Don't have enough bankroll. But more of my position is on a single lineup, which is kind of interesting because it's almost like the reverse of the parlay idea, because now on the parlay idea, I'm trying to hit a parlay for a big score. So I'm kind of diversifying a little bit, where now if I'm single lineup, I'm almost betting on a game where I need that one game to go right to win. But if I win big. So that hasn't happened. It's been frustrating of late. So interesting there. Last year, when Miami played Baltimore, and it's too bad Waddle's out, because they really kind of had that huge comeback in that game, week 2, and high scoring game, and the Ravens just kind of dominated early, and then both of them receivers went off, and Tua had a big game. So I was kind of looking forward to that, kind of see if they could take advantage of the secondary of the Ravens. But with one player out, I think Hill will still be productive, but it does change things a little bit over there. And then, even the running back over there, that's kind of, what's his name? Mostert scores the touchdowns. A-Chain just hasn't been the same as it earlier in the year. And then they even last week, they put Wilson on the field a little bit. But who will be active? I saw that right before I came on there, is Deuce. Deuce is going to be on the loose this week. Deuce Vaughn pays off in week 17 after giving 0 after 0 after 0 after 0. No, I don't even know.
I'm going to backtrack for 1 second when you were talking about Hall, and I don't have final confirmation, but word on the street early in the week that Addison might be out, and obviously Hall to Jefferson is where your eyes are. But if you were looking for lesser value, and don't forget no Hawkinson, how about KJ Osborne?
Yeah, I think Osborne, I'd be more attracted to Osborne than Oliver, even though Oliver's probably 2,500, I would think. So only needs 10 points. I can't dismiss that. That's not a bad matchup. I mean, Green Bay will be playing with Alexander's out because he got suspended, gave up a few points the last couple of games. I mean, it's kind of, whoever wins that game's kind of still alive, right? We don't know for sure how the other game's going to break. But I think Tampa's kind of established themselves where they're going to make the playoffs. The way that division has gone. But it's kind of wild. The Vikings kind of had, if they would have got Jefferson back a couple of games earlier and won one more game, they'd be in a lot better position than they are. I'd like to see them in the playoffs, but their quarterback play isn't going to lead them very far. So I don't know. Is your agent calling you? Did you get a new contract? How much you signing for? 4 years for $5 million. Can I ask you one more question? How about like those guys up in Boston, their Barstools? How come they don't get Jeff Dawson on their thing and be the star of their show? You know,
Yeah, there you go.
Are you just too good looking for them? Is that what it is?
Oh yeah. No, it's been crazy. I mean, it's a year that, again, we're coming up to week 17. There you circle back the wagons, no pun intended here, about the Buffalo Bills, where, leaving them to dead. Backstage, we were talking about the inept of the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, Ravens and Dolphins, winner is the number 1 seed. If the Dolphins lose this week and the Bills beat the Patriots, last game of the year is at South Beach, and the look-ahead line is Dolphins minus 1.5. My point is Buffalo could come in and not only play for the division, they actually, with a couple losses here and there from some other teams I don't have it in front of me, could end up with the number 2 seed, Shawn.
That's crazy. I know you're a fan of the Ravens, but I think there is no chance they're making it to the Super Bowl.
Oh, this is the year to do it. No Joe Burrow. I mean, no Joe Burrow. Kansas City not looking good. I think Buffalo would obviously be a tough out, number 1. But number 2, listen, call me crazy. Defenses travel.
Yeah, but
this Browns team is no joke. They're not going to be an easy out here.
Yeah, their defense hasn't been as impressive as they were early in the year, but they have scored some touchdowns. I was thinking when you were talking earlier, is like in a neutral field, straight up, who would be favored? Joe Flacco or Patrick Mahomes right now?
Well, just because it's Kansas City and Mahomes, Kansas City would probably be about 2.5-point favorites because, okay, we saw what the Ravens did in San Fran last week. That was the Super Bowl preview.
But when they were saying about that game last week, right, when everybody's like the Ravens, whatever, and Purdy 4 interceptions, they gained like 6.7 yards per rush and 8 yards per pass attempt. The 49ers were the much better offense, and they showed flaws in Baltimore's defense against a good passing attack. People, they can be rah-rah. They won the game. They got the turnovers and stuff like that, and Purdy had a bad game. But that just shows that they can get exposed by a good offense that can pass the ball. But go ahead.
No, you're spot on. They move the ball extremely well. And those 4 interceptions, tip pass, you tip a pass in the NFL, and a defense like Baltimore is going to get their hands on it. So my point is this. The look-ahead line for the Super Bowl, if there's a rematch, is San Fran minus 2.5, by the way. And I've been saying all along about this Ravens defense. They're not the 85 Bears. There's no Ed Reed. There's no Ray Lewis. They're a good defense, and they're very opportunistic, like a lot of successful playoff run defenses. Go back to the Patriots back in their glory days. They had that defense that would take that tip pass and take it to the house. So as much as the Ravens, don't forget also, if they get the 1 seed, we'll get the bye week. So the bye week is huge. They'll be 2 wins away from the Super Bowl. It won't be easy to go into Baltimore, but I think the Bills with Allen could definitely do it. Patrick Mahomes on any given day could do it. And it's just interesting where this Browns team is going, where I don't think Flacco would be phased at all going into Baltimore to face Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, the Browns are kind of interesting because they've had some games where you thought their defense was good, but they end up being a lot higher games, and they've kind of snuck out a couple of games that they shouldn't have won. But and they've had some, some of these teams that you're like, oh, these guys are 9-5 late in the year, but then they have, playing a team like the Jets, backup really a third string quarterback playing, it's a lot. If Aaron Rodgers was playing on that team and they were going there and had one better receiver or something like that, the whole dynamics would be different. I mean, they had I think the number 1 defense against wide receivers all year coming into the game. So, a lot changes. But yeah, I don't know. Cleveland's a wild card, and we'll see how they shake out as far as matchups. But I just the AFC will be kind of more interesting. I think the NFC, because I think there's 2 or 3 teams that are kind of better in general. But will they play? And will Philly's defense it's going to be hard for Philly to kind of turn around defensively. I think they'll play well, but they need, in order for them to win in the playoffs, they really have to kick it in high gear offensively because their defense should give up points. But, weather could help them. You never know.
Yeah, we haven't seen the real Philly team, but as you said, it's tough to flip that switch. We already wanted to anoint the 49ers. If they get the 1 seed like Baltimore, we'll get that week off. Someone's going to have to travel after playing the week before. I compare the East with the Browns to the NFC and the West with the Rams. Now, look at their offense. Stafford, Kupp, Puka, Karen Williams, and don't forget they have Aaron Donald on the other side. So, but if they get first week or they got to travel to Dallas first week, they're a live dog as well.
Yeah, the Rams are one of the teams that have are they 7-6 or whatever. They're trending in the right direction, and they got a good offensive structure. They belong in the playoffs. They probably didn't look at earlier in the year, especially that midseason, run by Cooper Kupp kind of disappearing, but he has star power. Puka's there. Demarcus Robinson's been really, really, really kind of gave him that third option that can kind of score. Really surprising because he's been on some other teams. Don't throw the tight end much. The running back's been a beast. And the secondary has held up a lot better than expected. I think I kind of hit on that Dallas when they played the Rams earlier, but it's kind of a backup game. But yeah, they deserve in the playoff. They are dangerous. The other team obviously is dangerous is Detroit, but Detroit, I think if they win in 3 games in the playoffs will be a little more difficult because I think they have an inconsistency factor where, against good defense, they might not show up, especially like they shot the back-to-back games against the Bears that Goff really struggled. But then there's, last 2 games they played great offensively. So, and I do think the Williams guy, the wide receiver for the Lions, he's really looking like he's progressing a lot. Like I was not interested in him at all this year, but based on his stats next year in fantasy, he's probably going to go really late. And I think he can make a big pop next year and, kind of get to where people thought, and he won't look like much on paper, but he's trending forward for me.
It's been an amazing hour. So many people to shout out: Mr. Shawn Childs, I was going to say, Sean Kroll, Mr. Kitchen, Stuart Bunton, Russell Saylor, Jim Christie, Kenny Magner. If I missed anyone, I apologize. Anyone that's not following us on YouTube, run over to YouTube at some point today, this weekend. Subscribe to our channel at East Coast Sports Investors. It's free. Turn on all your notifications so you don't miss a show with me and Sean. We will be transitioning to fantasy baseball at some point in January. I'm going to let Sean get to writing. But as I always do, Sean, tell everyone where they can find your work for like 30 cents a day. I mean, it's pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I'm at fantasyanalyst.substack.com is where I've been putting all the football content, and I've been putting some baseball strategy articles. My plan next week is to flip probably on Wednesday after I do the football projections to baseball. I mean, I will not have any game breakdowns for the positions for the DFS there. I just think my time will be more efficient to get a couple extra days in the books for baseball. And then, full-time fantasy where my content goes there as well. And then I'm at Twitter or X at Sean_Childs. And I think I will be a little more present posting stuff over there of my own stuff. I kind of let that go to full-time in football season, but in baseball, I think I got to kind of be front and center and put some stuff there and kind of push it on both platforms and see what it can do. And hopefully, that's the window to kind of get people to follow you is the prep work for the seasons. And I think, we got a long window in football from May till, all through August, where baseball is a little bit shorter. January 1st, I think realistically research for baseball, the guys that are kind of into it, January 1st till March 1st is kind of where it all happens and people are kind of drafting. But once the lights go on in spring training, you've done your research, you got position. Now you're at that secondary where who's throwing the ball good, who's going to get a job, and it's a different information. And it happens so quick, and we're going to be drafting. The month of March goes by so fast, and we get to live events in Vegas, and it's I'm going to Vegas on the 20th. So the last 10 days, you have to take in so much information over a 3-week period, and they're all small segments. A guy pitches 2 innings, 3 innings, 4 innings, and you got to make decisions. So I look forward to it. I like baseball. It's a whole different war than football. Football's a better entertainment game from on a Sunday because it's all concise. But baseball is a really, really good game, especially if you can build some good rosters and if you're in the hunt late in the year. So that's the goal. Have some baseball teams, go to Vegas, have some fun, and I'll bet my opinion, and you'll bet your opinion, and we'll see what happens.
And Stuart Bunting, you heard that. So I know you do fantasy baseball with a bunch of the locals. So make sure you're Donnie Drew and a bunch of you guys following Shawn along as well. Thank you, Rick, for the text on Jacoby Brissett. Mr. Saylor, thank you for the update there as well on the hamstring. It's been a great, great hour to everyone. This is the last show of the day. The 3 Men in the Box will be tomorrow at around 11:15 a.m. We're going to break down the 4 games on Saturday, and then, of course, the 2 championship games on Monday. And then our usual show at 5 o'clock with Ron Mamarlevsky is off this week. Ron has family coming into town, so we're going to let him have fun with the family. But we'll be back next Friday at 5 o'clock as well. So from myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, the one and only Shawn Childs, it's Shawn _Childs, both on Twitter or X, wherever you would like to call it. Come follow us along. We'll follow you back. So, guys, have a great, great day. The weekend's there, and we'll be back here tomorrow morning around 11:15.